Jennifer.ensinger at co.bastrop.tx.us.
Okay, I just sent it, Your Honor. And what it is Mr. Let me see if I can.
Okay, if you can forward it to me.
Oh, forward it to you directly, Your Honor? Okay.
No, Jennifer's going to forward it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I said that to her. She's the host. Okay, I have it.
Okay. And it says there, Your Honor, I'd offer it up as response exhibit 1. Mr.
No
Aguirre.
objections.
Right. So, Ms. Aguirre, it says here that you have been receiving $627.24 a month in payments for child support from the Department of the Army. Is that correct? Have you been receiving that?
Sorry, is that for me or Mr. Aguirre?
It's for you. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Recently.
So, okay. And I mean, so are you saying that there are where he hasn't made any payments?
No.
Okay.
I never.
So, right. Okay. I'm just wanting to clarify that. All right. So, and have you ever wondered why? Have you ever inquired as to why you're not receiving the whole? You weren't receiving the whole $744.
I was. Yes.
Okay. And whom did you ask?
I'm sorry.
Whom did you ask as to why you weren't?
Support.
The child support?
Mm-hmm.
The state of Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, given his current rate of pay, okay, do you understand there's a chance that even after all this and after Judge Eskew orders whatever new amount of child support to be, that you're still probably not going to receive more than the $627.41 a month? That there's that possibility, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But having said that, you still want Mr. Guzman to be found in contempt. You want to order to put him in jail. Even though you don't want him physically to be hauled off to jail right now, you understand there's going to be an order for him to go to jail.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's what you're asking the court to do. Is to sign an order, hold him in contempt, and sentence him to 180 days in jail.
Right.
Okay. Okay. You understand that Mr. Guzman also has an obligation to support 2 other children?
I understand now. Yes.
Right. So, given the Texas Practice Manual, I'm sorry, the interstate travel for visitation, I guess first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have an objection to the children traveling to visit Mr. Guzman?
I don't.
Okay. All right. But your objection is that you shouldn't have to help pay for it.
Correct.
Okay. And I believe you stated under direct questioning from Mr. Aguirre that that your rationale was that because he hadn't seen the children before, you shouldn't have to pay for it now.
I'm sorry. One more time. Can you repeat that?
That because, in your opinion, Mr. Aguirre hasn't seen the children or hasn't seen the children much before, that's the reason you shouldn't have to help pay for travel for them to visit now, going forward.
that's not the reason, but
Okay. And what, oh, okay. So what was your reason that you gave Mr. Aguirre?
I wouldn't be able to pay for the airplane tickets for them to be going constantly to go visit their dad. I believe that if he wants to come, if he wants them to go, he should be paying for all airline or the full amount of airline ticket.
Okay. So your reason is that financially you're not able to do that.
Correct.
Being that both of you are from Laredo, you understand that that there's always been a possibility that if Mr. Guzman is no longer in the Army, that he was going to be that he would probably return to Laredo.
Mhm.
Okay. And if that's the case, and if he were in Laredo, would you be in agreement to meet as far as the exchanges for the children in, say, San Antonio?
Right. I
Okay.
wouldn't mind. I have family in Laredo as well.
Okay. All right. And if you were within the area, you wouldn't have a problem meeting in Round Rock.
I wouldn't mind at all.
Okay. Beg court's indulgence, Your Honor. I think I have just one more question. I covered it already. I'll pass it when it's shown.
Do you have any further questions for this witness, Mr. Geary?
Your Honor, I don't at the moment. May need to call her back if Mr. Urita calls her as one of his witnesses. I think everything we can do, or I need to do, we can do it through Mr. Guzman. Thank you.
And do you have any further testimony you'd like to present, Mr. Geary?
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
Do you have any other witnesses you'd like to call at this time?
I'd like to call Mr. Guzman.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman, would you say your name and spell it for the record, please?
Sergio Guzman, SERGIOGUZMAN.
And by the way, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. You are the respondent father in this case, is that correct?
Yes,
And you're the father of Sergio Jr. and Adriel Guzman, correct?
correct. Yes.
Okay. Where are you currently living?
Fort Drum, New York.
I'm sorry, did you say Fort Drum?
Fort Drum, New York.
May we get your address for the record, please?
11737B Woodland Drive, Fort Drum, New York.
You and Miss Gonzalez divorced back in 2012, and the decree ordered you to pay child support in the amount of $744 a month. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And so it looks like from the payment record, starting in about February of 2013, that's when the arrearage started. Bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen here, Mr. Guzman?
Yes.
Okay, do you see this document I've labeled as Exhibit P3?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to highlight this right here with my cursor. Are you this Sergio Guzman that this child support payment history refers to?
Yes.
Okay. And so I requested this from the AG's office yesterday. If you see the date of 4/6/21, this is the most up-to-date record that we have. Bear with me, my computer is not cooperating with me. So I'm scrolling or trying to scroll to the bottom of it. Bear with me. I don't know why my Adobe Acrobat is acting crazy. It's not letting me scroll to the bottom. I have to close it and reopen it. Okay, Mr. Guzman, can you see my screen here with the payment record?
No, it's your home screen.
I'm sharing the wrong screen. Apologize. Now are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree that as of today, or as of yesterday, excuse me, that you're in arrears in this amount of, or in the amount of $16,003.01?
Yes.
We don't need to go through each and every month, but is it true that the amount being withheld from your paycheck is less than what you're ordered to pay?
Yes.
Okay. So from looking at your LES, it looks like $627.24 is being withheld every month for this child support case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So were you aware that your final decree of divorce has a provision in the withholding section that states that if your employer withholds less than the full amount of your child support obligation, that's your responsibility to pay the rest of it?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay. I don't have a final decree marked as an exhibit, but I've got a copy of the decree and we can go through it. But I will just say that it's a very standard provision in all the child support orders or withholding orders that say if the full amount of child support isn't paid by the employer, that's an obligation of the obligor. So that being said, had you known that that was your responsibility, would you have made the extra payments throughout this time?
If I was able to, then yes.
Okay. So do you agree with me that your base pay right now is $3,585.30?
My base pay, correct.
Okay. And your BAS is $386.50 a month?
Yes.
And your BAH is $1326 a month?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a total of $5297.80. That's what you're taking home every month, correct?
I'm taking home
For your paycheck before any deductions. Excuse me, sorry, your net.
So I don't see my.
So are you okay? Now let me ask you: how many other child support cases, or how many other children are you currently paying child support for? Excuse me.
2.
Okay, and where are those orders from? Which counties and which states?
I believe there's one at Fort County, Texas, and there's another one in Washington State.
Okay, and are you current on those child support cases?
No.
Okay. How long have you been in arrears that you're aware of regarding the 2 children subject to this suit?
I don't know exactly when it started.
5 years, 2 years, 6 months?
Probably a few years.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that you've had the opportunity to speak to either your CEO or someone regarding having an extra basically $150 withheld to make sure that your child support is current on this case?
Can you say it just one more time, please?
Would you agree that you've had ample opportunity to speak to either your commanding officer or someone in the Army about having the additional funds withheld from your paycheck to make sure that you're covering your child support obligation?
It's not up to my commander. This is up to my pay and DFAS, the whole different organization.
I'm familiar with both of them. Have you contacted anybody at MyPay or DFAS about making the adjustment to your withholding?
Yes, they cannot do nothing about it. I've contacted them before.
I'm going to share my screen again. I'm showing a document that was previously admitted as Exhibit P5, just to make sure that we're both on the same page. I'm highlighting a number right here, 3585.30. That is your base pay that is taxable income, correct? Monthly?
Yes.
Okay. And if we add your BAH and BAS, it comes up to 1712.50. That's non-taxable monthly pay, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's 2 children subject to this order, and you have 2 other children. So applying the child support guidelines, would you agree that your guideline child support based on your current income should be $970.45?
I have not done those calculations at all.
Okay. What do you believe that you should be paying in child support currently on this case?
What I could afford.
Okay. And how much could you afford?
Well, with what I'm paying with right now, I believe that if I pay any more, it's not going to be any good for me. I have I have a whole other family to support here from. And,
May I interrupt a second? Mr. Rutia, do you have those other orders?
The orders of
The other
I'm sorry,
courts that Mr. Guzman testified about?
I do not, Your Honor. I have, no, I do not, Your Honor. I have the withholding orders, I believe, but not the actual orders.
Okay, well, the withholding orders would be helpful.
Okay, Your Honor. Let me get
My
that.
question is, what is the total amount of all of his obligations and what's he making?
Oh,
And
Your Honor,
obviously,
I can answer that.
okay.
So,
Mr. Rutia, do you mind if we have this open discussion for a moment?
no, I not at all, Your Honor. And I wrote down that information.
Okay, Mr. Geary, do you mind?
no, sir, not at all.
Okay.
Your Honor, based on the LES that we stipulated to coming into evidence, I've also got that marked as my P4. Mr. Guzman, his total pay monthly is $5,297.80. And let me share my screen so I can show exactly what I'm
And I
talking
remember
about.
that, but I'm wondering what amount do all of his child support obligations total?
Yes, sir. So if you see these 3 columns
Oh, I
or
see.
3
Okay.
lines right here that I'm highlighting,
Thank
that
you.
comes up to a total of $1,568.09.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Rutia, do you disagree with that?
I can get you those orders. It is around that amount. I'm trying to find the page where I wrote them down. I wrote down each obligation.
Mr. Aguirre, could you share that again on the, or I could actually, I'm sorry, I have it. Never mind, you don't have.
I've got it right here, Your Honor. I can pull it up real quick. There you go.
I have sorry, Your Honor.
Okay, so the 627.24, is that the amount that goes to Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and then 470.42 is to another parent in 47043, looks like they are just a penny off, go to different other children.
That's my understanding. Yes, sir.
Okay. And that then will total, what did you say, $1,500, $1,600?
1568 and 9 cents.
1568 and 9 cents. Okay.
Yes,
And
sir.
And what is his total net that he receives? Is it up
Excuse
here
me.
at the top, the total amount 1350?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I'm
so-
sorry. His gross pay is here. His net is
Is it the 301792? See where it says total
yes,
5297?
3,007. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And, okay.
So-
and just, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay, so a little more than so more than half then goes to child support every month, even at that 5297 gross, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so what's the solution when someone has so much of a percentage coming out of their pay? Based on your opening statements, nobody said anything wrong. So I'm wondering, have y'all had any discussions about how to deal with an issue where somebody has, Mr. Aguirre, you're not wrong that any excess, Mr. Uche, you're not wrong that they can only withhold, they can't withhold more than 50% on the withholding. Mr. Aguirre, you're not wrong that that's a continued obligation. So whatever we determine the current amount is, even that previous amount goes above 50%. So it's not going to get withheld more than that. It still is his obligation. So have y'all talked about how you resolve an issue like that when you're both tend to be right on certain part of it?
And if I may, Your Honor, I just sent the withholding orders. I don't know why. I'm not sure why okay, I'm sorry. I just sent with the withholding orders in all three of these cases. But one of the things that we talked about yesterday was asking that the court order, instead of an extra amount every month, that the judgment be confirmed, that it not be held in contempt, and that he be ordered to pay at the back end. In other words, when the youngest child
Okay.
emancipates.
That's the only way I've ever seen that it could work.
Yeah.
Mr. Aguirre, is that something feasible to your client, that whatever amount we determine should be the child support amount, is that he keeps adding an arrearage, and then when these children would normally go off child support, you get a one-time reduction for one when that child goes off, and then when both of them go off, but the amount still stays the same, and he continues to pay that until the obligation, and with judgment interest, and until that gets paid off?
Your Honor, I discussed this with my client yesterday, and I've run into this situation before, and like you said, that's the only resolution that I've ever come across from any court in an instance such as this, when there's multiple child support orders that are taking more than 50%. I would also ask the court that if that's what's going to happen, that Mr. Guzman be ordered to turn over any of his tax returns, any one-time bonuses, excluding, combat bonus or things like that are strictly because of his ability and his MOS and what he's doing in the military. But, there's a $16,000 arrears.
That has to happen. I'm just saying it's the only way I've ever known that it does work. But let me backtrack for a minute, just because we've all agreed to have this kind of exchange. Knowing as a parent and 27 years of experience on the bench and some experience before that, no one is ever going to pay enough child support to make up for what you spend on your kids as a parent. It's never going to be enough. So how much, if we determine we're this, do we just say he's never going to be obligated on the basis of contempt to be more than 50%, and then he's going to continue to add arrearage? And then you're correct. He's got to agree to yearly modification of the child support if his income goes up. Or not necessarily yearly, but whenever his income goes up, he's got to agree to change that so that it's, so that he's not ever, he's put himself into a situation that is not necessarily wrong or evil or anything like that, but it is about making numbers work. And it is a situation that's not going away anytime soon. And it is something that he will owe. I'm mindful for the fact that it's all, even if we gave her $900 whatever a month, and then paid on the rearage, it's still not going to be enough. Never will be enough for our kids. And as they get older, everything they do costs more money. And so, Mr. Geary, what is, when somebody's trying, they haven't, never left her completely without support. Maybe he was wrong in not thinking that he owed it anyway. What's the answer for her, Mr. Geary?
Your Honor, I believe, and Ms. Gonzalez, correct me if I'm wrong, I think part of it is that Mr. Guzman just hasn't even made any contact with her about it, and it's been going on for so long. One, two, we're not trying to ruin Mr. Guzman's life. We don't think he's a bad guy, or we're not trying to say bad stuff about him. But the fact of the matter is that there is a child support arrearage, and we are limited because of the situation. I would say that if the court were to order it $970 without some type of arrearage being paid monthly, he's going to get himself into a position just simply because of the interest at some point where it's not going to be Mr. Urita or I or any other attorney in the private sector coming and doing this. Is going to be the AG's office looking for it. And so,
okay,
I understand that we're limited
for that. It might be a situation where he's going to owe support for, it could be double the time. It could be that he's still paying child support when these children are in their 30s. That is an obligation, which if I were Mr. Guzman, I would be completely overwhelmed by that thought. But, they're always going to be his kids. And the bottom line is whatever amount we do decide is child support, and if we decided not to apply a little bit of compassion, in theory, whatever the amount of support would be is what he owes. And if he can't pay that, it's still owed, and he's got to figure out a way to go pay it. That's the situation that was created, and the law doesn't take away that obligation just because he has other children. And yet then the same exact thing could happen to him in two other cases. And now, if we applied 100% compassion, and I understand there is an element that you're telling me, Mr. Geary, that sort of along the Chris Rock thing. If you make the authorities come get you, you know, they're bringing a kicking with them. And there's some element of that I understand. You know, hey, if he had been forthcoming, if he had been proactive, had he brought it to y'all and said, I can't do this, what can you help me with? There may be a completely different view about that. That's a good life lesson for all of us to learn, is if we've got an issue, don't wait for somebody to come get you. Go be forthcoming, go be proactive, go to them and say, hey, can you help me? That's a better life value than running away and saying, no, 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 and just kicking the ball away. So if we have 100% enforcement, it appears that he didn't meet his obligations, and he could have to pay that obligation and just have to go deal with it. If we have 100% complying with his support, but then giving him compassion, you don't hold him in contempt. You set up this arrearage that keeps adding, and we don't go over 50% and allow him to live some, but then that continuing obligation, whatever it is, starts kicking in to be once they drop off, then eventually his current support becomes zero and his arrearage becomes whatever the current support was ordered to be, and continues to pay that off, both interest. Mr. Arrutia, what Mr. Geary is saying is when you add interest in, then that ends up being overwhelming, that he may not even, by his current support, that might not even be paying anything other than interest. If that's the only other way that I've ever seen that could work is that the obligor go and get a loan and pay off arrearage and pay off amounts. Could even make a one-time payment and be done with all child support obligation. That doesn't sound feasible at these amounts, or what you've told me about your clients. But I'm saying sometimes somebody's had some land, or they've had something and they've gone and sold it and put it in a lump sum and paid off and never had a child support obligation again. I'm saying that the court has the authority to order a one-time lump sum payment. For most people who come through this court, that's not an option. But some people have not a lot of financial resources, but they have some land, or they have some stock, or they have something that was given to them, or, you know, sometimes it's even done by, hey, my lump sum payment is all the equity in our home when they're divorcing. So there are options, but one, we do need to determine what his current amount is, even if we go with either theory or something in between. I would like to avoid a contempt finding if somebody is actually having 50% of their income taken out of their check and they owe more, but they've been at least having that taken out. I understand. I mean, I'd like to avoid that. I'd like to avoid the contempt. I do think he should have been more proactive. And, you know, I have some solutions I've used in the past with regard to the visitation. And I'm not sure that anything that y'all have said would make me think that we can't resolve that part pretty easily. But Mr. Aguirre, do you want to take a moment in a breakout room with your client, and Mr. Urichia, do you want to take a moment with a breakout room with your client and see? I mean, we've got those two ends. The one end you show compassion and no contempt, and you create a continuing obligation afterwards. On the other end, you've got 100% enforcement, and you know, hold his feet to the fire and say this is a situation, good or bad, that he created himself, and that's what the law gives. But I do think that the law and the cases give me pretty wide latitude to try to accomplish any of those based on whatever the circumstances are.
Hey,
Your Honor, I think there may be one other solution. I've seen this done in the past where a person who's in the military has what's the equivalent of a quadro done for child support arrearages. I don't know how long Mr. Guzman has been in, if there's if retirement's on the horizon or if it's 10 years out. I've seen it done in a couple of different instances. It was usually when the obligor had children who he hadn't paid for in a long time. And then right before retirement, the enforcement came about and DFAS is ordered to pay a portion of the retirement and or TSP to the obligee for child support arrearages. We don't think Mr. Guzman's a bad guy. And I understand I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old boy that they live 30 miles away from me. And I understand that. And I agree with what you're saying. They don't get cheaper. However, I also understand that they are expensive, and when you're counting and expecting a certain amount to be there to make things happen, how it can be a constant stressor. So I would happily speak to my client regarding alternative solutions, and we can see what we come back with.
Okay. All right. Jennifer, can you get them into breakout rooms?
Yeah. Your Honor, if I may, I did want to just my client present some testimony regarding his income and breaking down his LES. I don't know if that's going to be material to the discussions we have, but I'd like to just get that information.
Mr. Gary, it was your witness. Do you have any further questions for him along those lines?
Your Honor, I was actually about to ask him about his monthly income and his bills. That was where I was heading next.
Okay, let's
so
do that.
I don't have any issue with those coming out.
Your client had the opportunity to testify, and he sure I would want him to feel like he's been able to talk about any of that. So you can ask him those questions, Mr. Arrutia, then you can cross-examine him on anything that wasn't covered, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Guzman, do you live on base?
Yes.
Okay. How much do you pay in monthly rent?
The exact amount of BAS. They take everything.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any utilities bills?
I just internet.
Okay. How much do you pay for your internet?
70.
Okay. What about cell phone?
200.
Okay. Do you have a vehicle payment?
Yes.
How much is that?
5, right around 600.
Okay. What about your vehicle insurance?
100.
Okay. Do you have any credit cards that you're paying on monthly?
Yes.
How much do you pay monthly total for all your credit cards?
Would say I try to bounce it from 400.
Okay. Do you have any other outstanding loans, a personal loan, line of credit, anything like that that you're paying on?
So loans. No.
Okay. Do you have any loans against your military retirement or TSP?
No.
Okay. How long have you been enlisted in the Army?
Going on 12 years.
Okay. Do you plan on staying through 20 years to retirement?
No.
Okay. When do you, and obviously we're not going to hold you to it, but when do you anticipate separating from the military?
2-3 years.
Okay. Okay, just a couple more questions for clarification. Does anybody live with you?
Yes.
How many people and who are they?
2, my wife and my daughter.
Okay. And are you paying all the household bills? Does your wife work?
No, she does not work.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Routine.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor. Oh, and Your Honor, you would ask the questions earlier. Total child support obligation on all three per month is $1,704.06. Mr. Good, what's your rank? E5?
Yes,
Okay, specialist or sergeant?
Sergeant.
Okay, well, I'll call you Sergeant Aguirre. Sergeant Guzman, sorry. Sergeant, when you provided me this LES, which is a leave and earning statement, your BAH at your base housing pay, that's $1,326. You live on the base, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you're and so when you look at your LES, where it says entitlements, 2 squares over, there's another box that says allotments. One is for TRICARE Dental, and the other one is for privatized housing. It says, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and that is the same amount, $1,326, correct?
yes,
Okay, so you don't even see that amount at all. It doesn't pass through your bank, nothing like that.
that's correct. I do not see it.
Okay, and if you were a single man with no children, no child support orders, things like that, you wouldn't even be getting a BAH allowance. You would just be living in the barracks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, and do you consider that income, the housing allowance?
No, they do not give it.
Okay. All right. So I know we were talking earlier about whether you plan to retire or do 20 years. Why is that? I mean, why are you not wanting to, what are your feelings about wanting to not do 20 years and complete a career out of the Army?
I just cannot. It's way too competitive.
Okay. Let me ask you another way. You're saying it's way too competitive. Do these obligations and does that put you at a disadvantage to be eligible for reenlisted or promotion?
Which disadvantages?
Okay, the fact that you owe such a high amount of child support, okay, and the fact that there are these judgments against you. I know you were talking about it puts you at a disadvantage compared to other candidates for reenlistment and promotion.
Yes, it does, because this is not my only case. I have another one, and one was able to reach out to my commander, and they were threatening UCMJ, and pretty much that hinders my ability to, for one, stay focused on my job. I don't work 9 to 5. It's not what I do. It's 24 hours for me, and it's not. I can't stay focused at all. And when they're threatening to give me UCMJ and Article 15s and take my pay, it makes life impossible. I understand that I have my responsibilities and I have my obligations, and I'm going to try to comply to the best of my ability, of course. But if it gets to the point where I'm getting threatened to receive UCMJ, eventually what's going to happen is that they're going to kick me out of the Army, and I'm going to stay out of a job completely.
Okay. Now, kind of along that same train of thought, even if your command decided not to take you up on what we call the Article 15 UCMJ and demote you or anything like that, it is still not. Your commanding officer could not recommend you for reenlistment just based on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you might not have any choice but to separate from the Army, correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, having talked about the actual, you being able to get a loan, did you ever try to get a loan to pay some of these obligations?
No, I.
Okay. All right.
But it's just too much of a financial burden to be able to even apply for a long period.
Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you is, uh, if the judge were to order a judgment and order um, that calculate or that judgment be paid off on the back end of your obligation, is that something you would uh, think would be a better solution here rather than contempt?
Yes, it's
Okay.
going to get paid. Just obviously not at the moment.
Okay. All right. And is it your contention that the order that
Mr. Ritchie, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, so make sure you speak into the microphone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is your contention that any child support order not include the BAH allowance of 1326 a month?
Yes,
Okay, and so would you agree that without that, not taking that into account into the child support calculation, will leave net resources of 3303.43 a month? And for the purposes of this, it would place your child support at 681.33 a month. You understand that?
yes,
Okay. And is that what you're asking the court to order if they do order a modification?
yes.
All right. Okay. Have you ever given Miss Gonzalez any hassle about the children's passports and applications for passports?
I don't remember at all
Okay.
giving any
As
anything like that.
okay. As far as the travel and the visitation, all that, so let me clear something up. You're not saying you're going to be able to afford to be having travel them up first, third, and fifth weekend of every month to New York, right? I mean, that's just not going to be something feasible for you to do, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Even if Ms. Gonzalez was ordered to pay half of the airline travel, that's still something you wouldn't be able to do, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But what you're asking is that when they do travel, you would ask that Ms. Gonzalez be ordered to pay half of that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And but when I mean that, I'm sorry, I mean like half the airline fare, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you're familiar with the languages in the Texas practice manual about travel and the provisions for travel, like get the children to the airport an hour early and be able to inform so many days in advance of the kids' itinerary and their tickets and things like that. You're familiar with those terms.
yes,
Okay. All right. And you're asking the court to order that.
yes.
Okay. And have you ever interfered with any decision that Ms. Gonzalez has made regarding the medical decisions of the children, the child care provisions, educational decisions she's made with the children?
No,
Okay. And okay. And so do you feel that having the court order those exclusively to her is that are you you don't feel that's necessary at this point, correct?
correct.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Geary, do you have any further questions for Mr. Guzman?
Just a few questions, Your Honor. Mr. Guzman, do you have a military TSP?
No,
So do you have any other type of retirement besides a military pension?
nope,
Do you have any investments anywhere?
nope.
Do you have the ability to get a loan for a lump sum to try to bring down the arrearages if the court were to order?
It'll be a financial burden. So no, I don't think so.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Let me ask you both, now that we have done more testimony rather than just breaking out, it may be that we would just not do the breakout. I certainly would allow you to discuss something, but I'm not going to require you now that we've taken more testimony. Do you prefer to have a breakout and talk to your clients and see if you can resolve that? Or do you want to just tell me if there's any additional testimony and then I end up making a ruling?
I'd like to talk to my client for like 2 or 3 minutes and just kind of touch base and get the lay of the land, if you don't mind.
What I'm going to do is on my screen, I'm going to mute and stop the video. Jennifer will put you in breakout rooms. And then if you can, when you come back, just announce that you're ready to start. And when both sides are ready to start, then I'll talk to you.
Yeah, when we come back here, I may want a brief breakout session with Mr. Aguirre, just so we can talk.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, Jennifer.
Jennifer, I'm going to take a quick break. I have to go to the facilities real quick.
Mr. Urrutia, can you guys hear me? Mr. Guzman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, man.
Can't hear you. We're having trouble getting you guys into a breakout room. Can you guys just mute and then talk to each other on the phone, maybe?
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yes,
Okay, am I in the breakout room now, or have you?
we're having some troubles for some reason.
Okay.
We were able to break out one room and we're having troubles with breaking out into another room. Can you guys just mute and talk on the phone? Will that be?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, I'll call you in a minute, Sergio.
Okay.
Hello, Ms. Ensinger or Ms. Stittler? Okay.
Yes, sir.
We've reached an agreement. Like to read it into the record, please.
Okay, we'll go back on the record. My understanding is you have an agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Gary, would you like to begin and announce that?
Yes, Your Honor. So the parties have agreed to the following. Mr. Guzman is agreeing to a judgment of $16,003.01 in arrears for child support. His current child support amount is going to be $744. And we're going to include the language in the order that there's a variance from guidelines due to the circumstances in his other child support cases. Any unpaid balance at the end of each month on that 744 and current will be added to the back end of the child support and interest accrued at 6%. Mr. Guzman is going to pay 100% of the costs associated with possession and access and travel for the children. We are withdrawing, Ms. Gonzalez is withdrawing her request for criminal contempt. Mr. Guzman is agreeing to sign passport applications or renewals within 7 days of presentation, and we will going to include the standard passport provisions from the family code or the family practice manual in our order. Ms. Guzman has agreed that her rights and duties as requested are not going to be modified, so they will stay the same as per the previous order. In the event that Mr. Guzman is stationed or separates from the military and is back in Texas, the parties have agreed that the exchanges of the children would take place halfway between the two at a mutually agreed upon location. And there's not going to be a geographic restriction for Ms. Guzman and the children. No, Ms. Gonzalez and the children, excuse me.
Okay, Mr. Rutia, does that represent your agreement?
Yes, Your Honor, just a quick point of clarification for the record. The language associated with the cost of the air travel assumes that the provisions for air travel will be from the Texas practice manual will be part of the agreement. Okay. Also, I would just ask Mr. Guzman if he understands what Mr. Ida said, and is that the agreement as he understands it?
Judge Eskew, I apologize. It looks like my client got disconnected. I don't know if she heard me read that into the record.
It appears she's not on this Zoom meeting at this time.
May I step across the hall? She's in my conference room, and
Sure.
Let me see what's
Sure.
going on. Sorry about that, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you like to ask your client if that represents the agreement?
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to reread it when she's in the room now to make a clear
Ms. Gonzalez,
clean
did
record?
you hear Mr. Aguirre when he announced the agreement on the record?
No, I did not. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay, so if you'll do it again so that she can hear that and be able to answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the parties have agreed that, or Mr. Guzman is agreeing to a judgment in arrearages for $16,003.01. His current child support will be $744 a month. We're going to include the finding language in the order to justify the variance because of his circumstances in the other two child support cases. Any unpaid balance at the end of any month will be added to his arrearages or added to the total arrears at the back end, and 6% interest will be accrued on that. Mr. Guzman is going to pay 100% of any costs associated with travel for the children for his periods of possession and access. Ms. Gonzalez is withdrawing her request for criminal contempt. Mr. Guzman is agreeing to sign any passport applications or renewals within 7 days of presentation. Ms. Gonzalez is withdrawing her request to modify rights and duties so that rights and duties will stay as the previous order. In the event that Mr. Guzman is stationed in Texas or separates from the military and moves back to Texas, the parties agree to exchanges at a halfway point, mutually agreed upon, and there will be no geographic restriction for Ms. Gonzalez and the children.
Okay.
So, Ms. Gonzalez, you heard the terms that I read into the record. Are those the terms as you understand them?
Yes.
Okay. And were you promised anything in exchange to making this agreement?
No.
Okay. And do you believe this agreement is in the best interest of your children?
Yes.
And are you asking the court to accept this agreement and make these orders so we can make a final order and present to the court for signature and finalize this case?
Yes, please.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
And Mr. Ruti, do you have any questions for Ms. Gonzalez? And if
Yes.
not, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, really it's more for Mr. Aguirre, since she wasn't on the, since she had stepped out of the call. We understand that the order is also going to include the provisions of the Texas practice for air travel and airline travel regarding the children. That's all, Your Honor.
That's correct. And we stipulate to that we'll include the passport provisions and the air travel provisions from the practice manual, Your Honor.
Hey, would you, Mr. Ruti, would you like to ask Mr. Guzman?
Yes, Mr. Guzman, you have heard all the provisions stated on the record.
Yes.
Okay, and do you believe these orders are in the best interest of the children?
Yes.
Okay, and you understand clearly what these orders are and what the agreement is?
Yes.
Okay, are you asking the court to approve the order so that so that we can have one drafted up and signed and presented to the court?
Yes.
Okay, that's all, Your Honor.
Okay, I will approve the agreement of the parties. It is now order of the court. Who is going to draft this?
We'll draft, Your Honor.
Okay.
Anything further?
I don't believe that we need an entry date. I would just say that I'll get the order to Mr. Urrutia within the next 2 weeks or maybe Friday after that. I would anticipate getting you the order within the month.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Good luck to everyone.